Okay, today what we're going to do is we're going to go over the gyroscope with the sense hat. So the first thing we're going to do is step one is show how to do the basics where we just show the X, Y, and the Z axis and grid coordinates. The second thing that we'll show is on here when we turn it, and depending on what direction we turn, on the X, Y, Z axis, it's going to change colors. So I'll show you how to do that as well. And for the people who wants to see it in a bar chart, we can sit there and measure the rotation in the bar charts as well, like for the speed that we're rotating. The last thing I'm going to show you is how to make this little red dot move around. So if you want to move this red dot around so you can build something like cool later, like a snake game or something, you can do that. So far that sounds good. Let's get started. Okay, so to get started, we really have to understand some of the basics of the gyroscope. So the gyroscope is measuring the spinning of the pie. So it's how fast things are spinning around the axis. So if we look at the pie, if we turn it like this and like that, we're measuring the x-axis, and then up and down the y-axis, and then just kind of like left and right like that, we're measuring the z-axis. So how do we code that? Well, in VS Code, I already have some of this already set up. We already imported the package, which are the sense hat and the time, and we created the instance already. So if you think about what needs to be done, we need to continue to measure the X, Y, and the Z continuously. So to do that, we're going to have to do a while true loop just to make sure that it never ends. The next thing we're going to do is we have to call the gyroscope, and we're going to bring out back the raw data. So if we name a variable gyro, and then we do the sense.get gyroscope raw, and then we'll be able to call the gyro. Now that needs to be in the true loop because it needs to change, and if you put it outside, it's only going to bring back one value and it's never going to change. So we have to keep that in our true loop. And now we just want to print the results. So if we print the results, we do the F string, and then we'll just say the gyro, and then we'll have the X, and then we'll create a dictionary for the X, and we'll call the gyro, and then we need to call the X-axis. And then what we'll end up doing is, let's format this because I want my decimal points for my floats to go back 5. So we'll just do the :.5f for that. All right, and then we'll just do a comma, and we'll do the next one. So we're doing the X, Y, and Z, so I'm just going to copy this, and I'm just going to change that to the Y. And I'm going to change this to the Y too. And then we need another comma, and we need to do the same thing for the Z-axis. The Z-axis. Okay. And then we'll just save that. And just kind of measuring the speed of the axis is going to be that simple. So we're going to go down here, and I'm going to type in Python, and then I'm going to do the gyro.py, and there we go. It's going by super fast. We can't really read that well, so I'm just going to break that, and we're going to put in a time, and I think 0.5 would be good enough. We're going to save that, and now we're going to run this, and we should be able to read this a lot better. And it says module not Oh, I know why. Time sleep. There you go. Okay, so now we fix that. So it's time.sleep. And we run this, and everything's going by a lot easier, and we can read this. Now, if I pick up my pi right here, and then I just kind of turn it really quick like this, you'll see these numbers changing. If I go up and down, we'll see the numbers changing. Just left and right, the numbers will change. And you'll see all those changing on the X, Y, and Z axis depending on which way we're turning it. So, setting up the basics is simple as that. So let's have a little bit of fun with it, and let's add some color to it. And we're going to have to recode this in a different way. But I just kind of want to show you the basics where you can kind of understand really quick how that gyroscope is working. Alright, so to add some color, how do we do that? Well, we know color comes in red, green, and blue, and we also know that it's a value between 0 to 255 for each of those values. But if we go down here and look at a gyro, it's bringing back floats, and sometimes it brings back negative numbers as well. So we have to figure out a way how to handle that, turn those into integers, and make sure that we bring back the absolute values of those. So let's go up here and create a function to handle that. So we're going to define our function, and we'll call it scale. And what we're going to end up doing is bringing back the value. Okay, so every time that we have an X or Y or a Z change, it will come back through here and we'll pass that value to get that integer between the 0 and 255. And it's going to be really simple. We're just going to do a quick return. And we're going to make sure that we do a max of 0. And then we're going to do the minimum of 255 just to make sure that we get into that range between 0 and 255. And we're going to do an integer because we want to make sure that our value is an integer. And we mentioned the absolute value. So again, if your numbers that you're passing is a negative, it's going to turn into positive. If it's positive, it's going to stay a positive. Then we're going to do the value because that's what we're passing in. And then, since these are low numbers, we're just going to multiply that by 255. Okay? So, we have that in there. And let me take a quick look at this. Max is 0, comma min, 255. And there you go right there. There you go. All right, so I got that fixed. So now that this is straight, this should work for us. So if we go down here, I think I'm going to keep this in here just for continue to see the numbers, right? But down below it, what I'm end up going to do is I have to define my X. And that's going to equal, and that's going to be the same thing as really up here is we're going to use that value of the gyro X. But again, this comes in as a negative. It's a float. We don't want that. But we do want to get that value. But what we need to do is we need to scale that value. So basically what's going to happen now is that this X value, since I'm calling the scale function, and I'm calling this right here, which is the gyro X value, it's going to come up here, pass into the value, and then it's going to return the number right here. So we'll have that X scale right here. Now, we're going to do the same thing for the Y and the Z. So we're just going to put it up here as a Y. And then we're going to change this to Z down here. So that way we have the X, Y, and Z values. Now, we want to use those as color, right? So remember, it's RGB, so this is going to be red in the end. This is going to be green in the end. And this is going to be blue in the end. Okay? And these are just references up there for us to know. Now, when I type in my color, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. Okay? And again, this is RGB, right? So that's like red, green, blue. And I just kind of put this up here just to kind of have that visual reference. Now, this will be a variation of the color depending how I turn it, because it'd be a mixture of red, green, and blue on some occasions. But the faster I spin it, the more intense the color should end up. Now that we define the color, we have to call it. Well, we're just going to use the sense.clear, which typically, clears out the value that's inside the pi. But in this case, we are going to clear it with the color, and that way when it changes, we'll see the color that's already in there. And then after that, I'm talking about, this should be pretty much it. We still have the sleep there just to kind of give that pause before we go on to the next. So let's go ahead and save this, right? And if we save this, now we should be able to run it. And we notice these values are changing, which is still good. But if I pick up my pi and I look at it, so now, if I do a tilt, it's green. Up, that's green. If I do the left or right, it's red. If I do back and forth, right, it's that blue color. See? Goes to the blue. Now, if I go all over the place, the color is just going to change, with that. And it's really simple as that. So it kind of gives you a color reference on how things are changing. Okay, we're going to clean this up a little bit. And how are we going to clean this up? Well, we're going to make a function. Okay, and we're going to make a function off of this piece of code right here. We know it works, so we're just going to cut it out. So Control X, and we can go up here and we can just make a new function. So DEF RGB code name. I know it's original. And then we'll put the parentheses up, and then we'll just paste it in there. And once we do that, we'll go down here and we'll just type in RGB code. Make sure the top 3 letters are capitalized, and then code. And then we'll just call it. And then we'll save this. And if everything works right, we should get the same results. So we run the Python gyro again. And again, we're getting that like we should. And we lift this up. And again, when we change it, it will give us the different colors. So everything's working the way it should. And it just kind of clean her up. Okay, so what we're going to end up doing now is we are going to create a bar chart to kind of show the X, Y, and Z axis. So instead of using the color and displaying the whole part of the pie, we're going to actually build a bar chart out. So how do we do that? Well, let's go up, and we're still going to have to do a scale function, but it's going to be a little bit different. So we're going to call a scale, and we're going to scale it to bar height. So now we have scale to bar height, and then we are going to pass in the value similar to how we did up here. But this time, what we're going to do is we're going to do a scale factor equals 4. And if it's too sensitive, we can tweak that a little bit later. We can do the height equals, and then again, it's going to follow that same pattern. So we need an integer. We're going to take that absolute value again. And this time, we're going to times it by the scale factor. Okay? So the scale factor is 4. So we'll know that that's what that factor is going to be multiplied by. And then we're going to return it. And it's going to be the max. And again, it's going to be the 0. And it's going to be the minimum. Okay. And the minimum is going to be 8 this time instead of 255. Now the reason is because it's an 8 by 8 LED, right? And then we're going to change that to the height, right? And there you go. And then, again, we'll get in the height from here. And that should do it for that. Now, once we have that, we'll have to do the bar. So let's draw the bar. Okay, so we know that we need the column of the bar. We're going to need the height of the bar. And we probably want the color of the bar. So we'll throw that in there. Okay, so once that's in there, well, let's see. We're going to grab the y-axis. And then we want that in range up to 8 because, again, it's an 8 by 8 LED screen. Then, if the y is greater than equal 8, we'll minus the height. Then, so if y is greater or equals to 8 minus height, we'll end up setting the pixels to column, comma, y, comma, color. Okay? So basically, if y is greater than equals 8 minus height, then we're going to set that pixel. Okay? Else, we're going to sense.set pixels. And we are going to have that column. And then we're going to pass in the colors 0, 0, 0. Basically, if we don't have a value, we're turning it off. Okay? So I think that's pretty straightforward. Now, if we go down to our regular code here, and we can comment out the RGB code because we're not going to need it. And then I'm going to do the height. So we'll do the X height equals, and then we're doing the scale to bar height. And then we're going to do the gyro. And then I'm going to do the X. So scale to bar height, gyro X. So that's going to call the scale to bar height function. So we'll go up here, scale to bar height function, and then it's just going to go through this function right there. So that's how we're getting the height. And we're going to do that for like the Y and Z. So we're just going to copy that. And we're going to paste it in here as X, Y, and Z. And then we can do the X, Y, and Z over here. to keep things simple. And then for this one, we're going to be explicit on these colors. So we're going to do like red equals 255 0, comma 0. Okay. And then since this is red, green, blue, we'll just do it this way. We'll make this green. And then the 255 will be in the middle. And then blue, if I can type, blue, the 255 will be at the end right here. Now that that's there, now we have to draw the bars, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to draw the bar. Okay. And again, when we draw the bar, we go back up here and we're doing this function up here. So we need the column height and color passed in, and that's going to kind of give us that height of that bar. So if I go down here back, knowing that, I know that first thing I want to do is I want it to pass in the 2, and then I want to pass in the X height, and I want to pass in the red, right? And again, if I go back up here to look at them, that's in the column, the height, and the color. So this is going across the axis, and that's going to be starting at 2, right, for this one. Now, if I go over next, I need the green, and I need the blue, right? So we know that this is the y-axis, and we know that this is the z-axis, and we know this is the this is green, and we know this is blue, right? Okay, so now on the I gotta put my D's in here for I can draw the bar. Over here, where we have again, I'm talking about we don't want to write over that cell, so this is going to start over at the X2, and then with the Y with the height. But for these, we want 4 and we want 6. That way, we're not writing over top of it. It's actually separate in the different bars. And after that, we'll just go ahead and hit save here. And then we'll just go ahead and run this really quick. Okay, everything looks like it's, working the way that it should. So that's a good thing. Now, when I hold this up, kind of see it, and return it, you see the different levels of the bar chart that changes, right? So, if I flip it really quick, you'll see the different bar charts come up, So, pretty cool. I'll talk about if you want to sit there and kind of see how that works, okay? Okay, so just to kind of show you what I did really quick is I did the same thing as I did for the RGB code, but I just made a function for the RGB bar down here, and I copy and pasted the stuff up here, and then down here I could just call the RGB bar. So that way I can just use the same file and just comment it out and just use functions to call stuff. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to make a red dot, and we're going to make it run all over the screen. So we don't need this RGB bar anymore. We're going to comment that out. Up here, what we're going to end up doing is we're going to have to set a starting point for our dot, and we're going to start it at like 3/3, right? And that way we can start it in the middle of the Raspberry Pi. Then we have the dot color. And we're going to make this a red dot. So we'll just make it red. You can make it any color that you want, because remember, this is just RGB. Okay? So we have that. Well, what do we do next? Well, let's make a function, right? And we're going to name this clear and draw. And we are going to call the X and Y. And basically, we want to clear it, so we're just going to do clear. This way it clears where that red dot is. And then we want to set that pixel, right? So we're going to set the pixel, and we need the X value, the Y value, and we need the dot color. Okay? So those are the things that we're going to need. Now, the next thing that we have up here that we're going to need is, let's say, and actually what we're going to have to do here, I've got to pass in the dot color. So we're going to pass in the dot color on that. The next thing we have to do is we have to get the direction, right? So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to do the function, and then we're going to get the direction. And then, how are we going to get the direction? Well, we have the gyro. And then that is going to be, and actually, let me think about this for a minute. I don't have to call my get gyro because I'm already calling it. So all I gotta do is set my threshold equals 0.2. So I'm just setting the threshold of my direction. Okay, and then the dx is going to equal 0, and the dy is going to equal 0. This way I'll have like clean starting points for my directions for my x and y value. Okay, so if the gyro, and we're going to start with the y value, is greater than the threshold, okay, we got to do something. Well, we're going to move that pixel is what we're going to do. So we're going to do the threshold equals -1. Right? And then we'll do an else if. And then we'll just copy this right here. And it's going to be, let's see, this one's going to be less than. And that's going to be the negative threshold. And this is going to be positive. Okay? So we have that all set up now. Okay? So now we're going to do the same thing for the x value. Right? So I'll just copy and paste, do the x, and we'll do the x right there. And everything is looking good right there. So I think we should be good to go on that. And then we'll have to return the coordinates, so the direction X and direction Y, we'll have to return those. Okay? So now, if we go down to the while true, we can just put in different stuff in here. So we want to clear and draw the X and Y. Okay? So whatever the X and Y is, we want to clear and draw that. So if we go up here to clear and draw, we have the X, the Y, and the dot color. So I need to put the dot color in there. And basically it's going to clear it, and then it's going to set my dot color like up there. So I'll put my comma dot color down there as well. So now we need to get the direction. So we have the dx, and then we have the dy, and we equal, and then it's the get the directions, right? So now if we go back up here, so that's getting the direction. We have the threshold, we have the dx, we have the dy, and we have all the thresholds in here to figure out where we're at on the coordinations on that. So what's next? Well, let's go down here, and we're going to update the position and make sure that it's in bounds. So we're going to do x equals max, and then we're going to do the 0, comma, min, and then again it's 8 grids. The range starts in 0, so that's going to bring us up to 7, and then we're going to do the x plus the dx, just for we know that where we're at. Okay, pretty straightforward. The next thing we're going to do is we're just going to copy this and do the same thing for the y value, except this is going to be y, and then it's going to be dy. And then we are going to save this. Okay? And then we're going to do the Python, and then we're going to do the gyro, euro. I'm hungry. Anyway, we'll hit the enter button, and it says threshold is not, oh, I misspelled threshold. So, where did it threshold? That's what you get for copy and pasting. Okay, so since I'm fixing the copy and paste error, I might as well go in here, and I know this is wrong too, so I'm just going to make that my dy and make this my dy. And then if I go down to the very bottom, I know this 0.5 is going to be a little slow, so we're going to make this like a 0.1, I guess, make it pretty quick. And we're going to sit there and save this. And now once it's saved, I run this, and I'll get my grid coordinates. They're going by pretty quick, but that's okay though. So down here, if we look at our pie, we can move, when we move this red dot, see how it's going up and down, and then we go left and right. So left, right, up, down. So we have that little red light moving around all over the place. That's pretty much it. So, I'm kind of curious on what you guys are going to do with this. Like, are you guys going to build like a snake game? Are you going to build a maze game? Or, just really what are you going to do with it? You could just put it down on the ground and then kind of like measure the thing and make an earthquake shaker out of it to, if the ground shakes or anything like that, to set up an alarm. So there's multiple things you can do with it. So just let me know what your plans are. All right, later.